Welcome to the bizval podcast. At bizval, we are passionate about empowering entrepreneurs the world over to understand and unlock the value in their business. We work with advisors and entrepreneurs to demystify the value creation process when building a business. At bizval, we know how tough it is to grow and run a business, which is exactly why we've made valuation simple to understand, accurate, and affordable. Our unique blend of tech and touch ensures that you always receive the best service, authentic human engagement, and data-led insights to ensure that you build a business that provides you with freedom and choice. In the bizval podcast, we showcase stories of real entrepreneurs and advisors, sharing lessons and inspiration from their journeys to make your journey just that little bit easier. Today, we're going to unpack how to build financial fluency and literacy across your whole company, not just in the finance team, with somebody who's made this his life's mission. He's the founder and CEO of Finance Fusion, Andrew Fick. Andrew, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Graham. Great to be here. Yeah, awesome.
So we're going to get a bit into Finance Fusion in a second, gamified learning for non-finance teams. We're going to talk a bit about your leap from the big four into entrepreneurship, some of the lessons along the way. But, Andrew, as we said, before the show, it's just going to be a conversation about your journey. And I think you've got a great story to tell. So maybe, paint a quick picture for us. Where did you grow up? What early experiences nudged you towards sort of business and numbers to start?
Yeah, Graham, I actually did a LinkedIn post on this one once upon a time that actually went quite viral. They always say when you tell a story, it paints a picture for people and they really get it. I grew up in a little town called King Williamstown in the Eastern Cape. I went to Dale College. And in those days, I'm sure you remember, Graham, there wasn't much going for us. I mean, when you were at school, when you were leaving school, you either became a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a dentist, or an engineer. There wasn't all these specialist fields. And I can vividly remember my dad was a partner in a law firm, and I can remember I think I was in standard 9, giving my age away now. Giving standard 9, it would have been about 1989. Well, it was 1989. And I remember walking to his office and him taking me for, I think it was to buy a pair of tackies or to take me for a haircut or something, and walking down the road. And across the road was a guy by the name of Nick Swartz. And Nick was a chartered accountant, and he was a partner at what became PwC. So I think it was in those days, it was Cooper's Tehran du Toit, and then it became Cooper's and Lybrand, and then became PwC. And Nick,
now you're really giving away your age.
I am totally. And my dad said to me, he said, "Andrew, this is Nick." I said, "Oh no, Nick." Everybody knew everybody in King Williamstown. It was a small town. And my dad just joked with me and said, like, "Yeah, Nick makes a lot of money. He's a chartered accountant." That was it. End of story. But I now know that I made a mistake, because I'm the poorest CA that I know. But yeah, we walked down the road, and then a few weeks later, I landed up at Nick's office chatting to him. I then went on after that to study BCom and honors and whatever at University of Port Elizabeth, as it was called then, now Nelson Mandela University. So from there, I did my articles at Cooper's and Lybrand in East London, which then became PwC while I was still there. After that, I traveled to England and landed a job at Dell Computers. I was apparently very lucky to get a job at Dell. Got the job at Dell. I was there for about 2 years. They then shipped me back to Johannesburg as financial manager of Dell South Africa. I then realized that accounting was for the birds, because I wasn't this back office guy. I felt that I needed to be more as client facing. So PwC in East London then basically said, "Well, why don't you join us and we can build a management consulting practice together?" And that's exactly what I did for 12 years. Between 2002 and 2014, we literally built this business from ground up. And that's where I got all my leadership skills and abilities. I mean, I even ended up heading up the human resource consulting team, where I grew a passion for training. Um, After PwC, I then joined another. I moved to Cape Town in 2014, I think it was. Was at PwC for 2 years, left PwC, realized that I needed to move on. I wanted more. You know, I had built businesses within PwC and at PwC, but they weren't mine. Um, and I had always wanted to build my own business and do my own thing. Yeah, I make it sound easy, but it wasn't. It's not. And we haven't made it yet, have we?
Not yet. Well, look,
Yeah.
Andrew, I mean, there's a lot we're going to unpack there, and I think let's go back to the early part of the journey. And I think a lot of people listening to the show, whether you're in South Africa or the US or the UK, growing up in a small town in the 80s, typical Gen X, probably riding your bicycle in the afternoons. So you grew up with a very, let's call it, sheltered view of the world. Okay. Um, and there's a lot to be said for that kind of upbringing. I think, you've had kids and I've had kids, you see how they grow up today. It's a completely different upbringing. But let's go back to your sort of childhood and growing
Mhm.
up in that kind of environment. Sort of two questions around that. Other than the rich chartered accountant who, who was maybe a mentor and influencer in your initial decision, were there any mentors growing up who kind of like shaped you? And are there any sort of non-obvious skills from your childhood, growing up in a small town, with that kind of mindset that kind of still helps you today?
Yeah, I think Graham. Yeah, Bill. Growing up in King Williamstown was very it was amazing and tough at the same time. And yeah, rode my bicycle everywhere until like my mom used to shout at me at night to come home because it was dark. As we did as kids. But I would say that I was I was brought up in quite a conservative household. My
Mm,
dad was this lawyer, and in those days, lawyers weren't even allowed to advertise. It was that
mm, mm,
conservative, and and he was sort of like this respected pillar within the community. So I
mm,
was brought up quite strictly in terms of you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do that, because if you do that, they're going to associate me with my dad. So
mm,
so that was also something I would say it almost constrained me in a way, but at the same time, it also helped me to grow and learn respect and integrity and professionalism and all that. I've
mm.
always been involved in the professional environment and professional services. I mean, even to this day, I'm now the acting CFO for my sins of an engineering firm, which is a professional services environment. I'm helping them to grow that as well. So
Yeah.
so I would say my dad, from professional services point of view, and then obviously bosses after that. So, I had a really good boss in East London. I had two or three really, really amazing bosses. And the one thing they did instill in us was teamwork. Teamwork
Mm,
is absolutely essential, and getting to know your team from at a personal level. Growing this
mm,
management consulting team in East London was, I'd speak about it all the time in all my soft
mm,
skills training that I do as well, because it really, really worked. I mean, we grew the PwC East London office to one of the most, well, it was actually the most profitable office in the country, even more so than Johannesburg, Cape Town, the other big centers, just because we had,
mm,
a real dream team.
mm.
So we did a lot of networking. We did a lot of going away on weekends, game viewing, bonfires, braaiing, drinking in those days, Castle Lager. Um,
Oxbry for those in the Eastern Cape.
yeah, all those things. So yeah, very traditional kind of a point of view, but I think as well, I'm also quite because my life has changed so much. I'm quite
Mm,
I'm not adverse to change at all. I love change. I actually embrace change. I was always that guy
mm.
at PwC whenever it was something new, they sort of like put me in charge because I was the one that would always see the light at the end of the tunnel. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah, so I suppose, I mean, oh, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, I was going to say,
other
I suppose there's a lot there about humility, importance of community relationship, and so those
Yes.
days we didn't have social media, so you had to build connections, and also I guess the value of building a reputation,
Yeah.
and credibility. I mean, those are things that you take with you, and it ingrains a value set in you, I guess, which you carry through your life, hopefully.
You say that's what you take with you, and that is so true. I was training a group of guys last night from the USA and Canada, on building teams and motivating teams. And I said to them, I said, like, all we have, right? All we have in our lives is our integrity and our name. It's all we have. When we leave one day,
Mm.
I don't know, people say this all the time, but it's really true. I mean, when we leave one day, that's all we have. What they're going to say, Graham was this guy. What did Graham do for me? He made me feel special. He made me feel, valued and all the nice things.
Absolutely. So Andrew, I want to move a little bit. So you worked at Dell, PwC. I want to draw a little bit on that time before we move on. But Dell Computers, I guess in the mid 90s, it was probably the equivalent of OpenAI today. It was kind of a rock star business. Michael Dell was new into the scene, building, scaling, forerunner to a
Yeah.
lot of the sort of modern, success stories. It's still used in case studies in universities around the world, I think. And then obviously PwC, which, well, as you say, Coopers and Lybrand at the time. Um, just maybe one or two sort of lessons that you learned there. Dell first, and then PwC. You touched on some earlier, but anything else
Yeah.
that you kind of reflect back on that time that you say, actually, yeah, this taught me X.
Mm. So I think, well, obviously I did my articles for 3 years at Coopers and Lybrand, and then I went to Dell in the UK. I was a
Yeah.
green chartered accountant. I was absolutely green. I mean, I didn't I was even not even that good with Excel. And I literally walked into this job like I was shell shocked. I was totally shell shocked. New in London, getting to know the underground, and we lived in Twickenham, getting the train in the morning in the wind, in the rain, until I bought a car. And yeah, it was tough. It was high pressure. So I worked for Dell, the European distributor business. And the European
Mm,
distributor business was the business. It wasn't the Dell UK. It was the business. It was the emerging business for Dell. So we had
mm,
119 or 120 countries that we were responsible for. So we had, and each of the countries had a distributor. So it wasn't the Dell direct model. It was a distributor model. So what happened was
mm.
that we would build up a country until we sold so many units, and then we would establish a full Dell BU in the country. And
Yeah.
you can imagine, I worked with Russians, Norwegians, uh, Belgian. I mean, I worked with like people that spoke 20, 40 different languages, all the call center
Mm.
agents. And it was quite tough as well, just thinking back now, because I was that guy that went to them to make sure all the order entries were done correctly. And I'm like trying to communicate with these young ladies that were French or whatever, and they didn't really speak very good English.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I can say that I learned, that I only realized a couple of decades later, this was in 1999, was the fact that Michael Dell had this amazing idea of establishing this company and growing it like he did. And I mean, not paying dividends, but because the company was in its growth phase, he didn't pay dividends. Everything was reinvested back into the company, so the cash wasn't taken out, so he could reinvest that cash into establishing Dell around the world. And
Mm,
and the whole direct model was intriguing. I actually
mm.
bought a Dell computer when I worked at Dell. I ordered it on Thursday afternoon. I never forget. Sitting at my desk, I spec'd this machine on Thursday afternoon. I went to lunch on Friday, came back from lunch, all the boxes were at my desk. They literally
Wow.
built this machine for me with all the peripherals and delivered it to me from Ireland in less than 24 hours.
And that was
Uh,
that was in the 90s. So people, youngsters listening in today, you go onto Amazon and that's kind of the expectation. Back then, that was truly like, you know, like
Possible. Possible.
rocket
Yeah.
science stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I actually met Michael Dell. He actually did a world tour, and he shook every single Dell employee's hand. There's
Wow.
a picture of me with him somewhere. I don't know where it is now. But yeah, I would say that's what I learned the most of. And the other thing is they never owned inventory. So at year end, they would basically pull a rope across the factory and say, whatever's on that side belongs to our customers, and whatever's on this side belongs to our suppliers. We don't own inventory. That to me is amazing because he
Wow.
managed his working capital so well, never owned any
Mm.
stock, just had cash. And I mean, when you buy a machine, you pay for it. You don't pay
Yeah.
for it. So I think the cash flow was great. The level of inventory was amazing. Um, yeah, it's a really great model. And I think that's how he scaled this business to, I don't know what it is today. Is it like $1 trillion or something stupid? It's like proper big business.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just fascinating, as you say. At the time, that was just a business. You look back in that, and you see just how transformative that was in the way that business was being done at the time. And being in it, it was just the way you were building and
Mm.
growing and learning how to how business worked. So I think sometimes you only appreciate that when you look back in it, and those lessons you carry with you today. So Andrew, I mean, I think we'll come into that now when we talk about Finance Fusion. I just want to, before we do that, just talk a little bit about PwC. Okay, so you moved from Dell to PwC. You've been there a
Yeah.
while. You built
Can I tell you
credibility.
one more story about Dell, Graham?
Go for
And the,
it.
and the one thing that really resonates with me, and I only remembered it now. We went through a bit of a recession when I was in Joburg. It was in 2001. So I was at Dell in the UK, 99, 2000, 2001, and then 2001, 2002, I was in Johannesburg. And Michael Dell basically put a cap on all OPEX. They said, you're only allowed to spend $1 million on OPEX. And what we're going to do is we want to extract as much gross profit as we can out of the business. We want to survive this recession. So the link between making management decisions to the bottom line is so important here, right? I mean, that is what I preach. I preach the fact that every decision you make in your life and in business has an impact to the bottom line. What these
Mm,
guys did, they said, okay, fine. What we're going to do to improve our bottom line is we're going to incentivize the sales guys. And they were very good
mm,
with this. There was a very strong link between finance and sales. We're going to incentivize the sales guys to sell service, storage, because storage units make, let's say, 72% gross profit percentage, whereas the laptops and desktops are making between 9 and 22% gross profit percentage. And these sales guys,
yeah, yeah.
but they incentivize these guys properly. I mean, these guys go
Mm,
away and they'll go and buy a bloody Porsche.
yeah.
They do big server deals. And that literally kept us alive during the recession. Sorry, I just
Mm,
needed to share that because I think it's so important for everybody to understand the link between
yeah.
non-finance and finance. Um,
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's about just, as you say, understanding where to prioritize. Not all sales are created equal, and when your whole team intuitively knows what to focus on and what not to, and how that translates to the bottom line, that's a superpower, right?
yeah,
Um, but let's talk about PwC very quickly. I mean, so
sure,
you
sure.
go back to PwC, you're building this consultancy practice. I forget how long you were there, 10, 15 years.
12
What
years, yeah.
what made you decide to walk away from the security of that, okay, into the sort of unknown of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think I'd moved to Cape Town 2 years prior. It was a struggle. It was a real struggle. Struggle on relationships, struggle with the kids, struggle with the new boss. Um,
Mm,
and I think I just decided at that stage that, I was in Cape Town, now there were more opportunities going. Um, and I just needed something of my own. I mean, I was 40, let's say 44, 43, 44 years old, and I just needed something of my own. And, it was my time and I needed more. That's, I think it in a nutshell.
Mm.
I'd also learned so much. I'd learned, when you're in an organization for so long, and also make you a lot of promises which don't come to fruition, and you just learn and learn and learn, and then you have partners that are, that you're reporting to, that you actually are advising because you know more than they do.
Mm.
It was just that I just realized that I had got my confidence, and let me go and do something of my own.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I mean, it's funny. I became an entrepreneur at 42 years old, and I always joke. I said, I know your daughter's 21st birthday is coming up,
Yeah.
um, and you become an adult at 21. It almost feels like when you hit 22, then you become like a mature adult. So you go from,
Yeah.
and it's funny how these cycles work. I think it's environment, but it's also you don't stop growing just because you're an adult, and I think it's amazing. I think they've done studies. The most successful entrepreneurs actually start their businesses in their 40s and
Mm.
50s. So okay, so the timing's right now. You're
Yes.
walking away, and before we move into Finance Fusion, you know, the one thing we probably don't appreciate. I mentioned your background in Dell and PwC. Okay, so you're moving away from these big brands that everybody knows and trusts and likes. So what is maybe some of the misconceptions I think that people have? So you've spoken a bit about the downside. You get trapped, it's corporate, it's all of those sorts of things. But when you leave a big brand behind, what are some of the things you don't think about? What does that brand provide for you? And when you don't have that, what are some of the things that become a challenge?
So, Graham, there's some people, there's some senior guys that work for the Big Four and big law firms, and that's what they are, and that's what I
Mm,
was. I was PwC through and through. I still speak about us as PwC because I was there from after school
mm,
kind of. And I think there are two types of people. This is my opinion. There's two types of people within, let's say, a PwC. There's the person that uses PwC to get what they want, um, but it's all about PwC, and the only reason people reach out to them is because they're with or they're at PwC. And there are
mm,
others that the clients go to PwC because of the person. They follow the person. And I like to believe that I'm that person because
mm,
and to me, when I left PwC, not much changed except for the paycheck because
mm,
I still had my connections. People still wanted to help me, not necessarily the PwC guys because they needed to help themselves.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and I think the perception is that your previous company will support you post exit. Never happens. Never
mm,
happens. It
mm.
doesn't happen. It might take a little while. In fact, I've just recently joined the Lekker network, and I reached out yesterday on a WhatsApp asking because I'm looking for decision makers at banks where
Mm,
we can get involved to help upskill their people that are borrowing money from them, entrepreneurs, to help those entrepreneurs pay back the money,
mm.
grow, because there's a direct
Yeah,
correlation between finance knowledge and being able to pay your loan back. And I got a guy on the Lekker network that happened to be PwC. So now I'm dealing with him to get into one of the which has now become the biggest bank in South Africa. So
yeah,
I did reach out to a lot of people that I knew at PwC, but not a lot of it came from it. In fact, I want to give a shout out to an old varsity friend from UPE. His name is Alan Barr. He's at KPMG in PE, and Alan is a gem. He looks out for me all the time. Any opportunity he throws my way, and I really appreciate those types of people. Um,
yeah,
yeah, like Graham, you've introduced me to your friend in Saudi as well. I'm meeting him next week. Um,
yeah.
and I'm thinking that, also you get the big four all around the country, all around the world, but every
Mm,
single every single town and city has a different big four. The big four that I was
yeah.
in London was totally different to Port Elizabeth, which is totally different,
Mm, mm,
to Bloemfontein, Durban, and Joburg.
Yeah.
And Cape Town is a center as well. It is so entrepreneurial. It's so entrepreneurial. There are so many entrepreneurs in Cape Town, people doing their own thing. And I've started networking a lot. And it is amazing getting to know so many people because they're putting you in touch with others and I'm able to help them as well. So,
I mean, I think that's just. I mean, I'm going to just extract a few key insights from that, Andrew. I mean, firstly, I also want to call out to Alan Barr. I mean, I don't know we chatted previously if we've mentioned Alan, but as you say, Alan, fantastic human being, and he's also supported our business incredibly in terms of referrals and connections and that. So you get those people, and I think yeah, Alan's
this
also
is
one of the
this
big
is
four
news to me.
competitor to. Yeah,
I didn't
competitor to
even
PwC. But
I
jokes
didn't
aside,
even know
is I
you
think the
knew
big
Alan.
learning. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what a small world. But the thing is, that's one of the misconceptions, right? Is yes, the brand is important and it attracts a credibility and all of that. But I think maybe this is back to your background, growing up in a small town where you learned the importance of personal relationships. So, you know, you don't carry with you, you were part of the alumni, but you carry with you the relationships that you take out of that and the strength of those relationships. And those are enduring. You don't leave those behind when you leave, when you change your LinkedIn profile, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's a key insight is focus on the relationship, not on the brand. But now you're going on your own and you
Yeah.
don't have that brand. So all you have is you have the reputation and the networks and the relationships. And again, a shout out to the guys from the Lacquer Network, you know, the likes of Rainier and that who are trying to create this, you know, network of South Africans across the world, but based on relationships. Okay. Not based on your brand or whatever. It's about relationships and how they can help. So I'm emphasizing that because that is so important. But I want to move on from that. Okay, so let's talk finance fusion. Okay, I want to focus the second part of the discussion around that. Give us a bit of the elevator pitch. What is finance fusion? I'm going to get it wrong again in the background. And what was the spark behind this?
The spark came during lockdown, 2020, and somebody reached out to me on an email. I actually thought it was spam initially. It was a company in America that does soft skills and finance training and other training for a company called Global Knowledge. And she reached
Mm,
out to me to ask me if I would facilitate their basic finance skills course. Subsequent to that, I then developed my own game. And because it was 2020, we had to do everything digitally. So I got
yeah.
hold of an IT guy and we developed this. I'm told it's not gamified. I'm told it's more of like a simulation. So it's a
Mm,
simulated game where we build a balance sheet and an income statement. And really, Graham, the elevator pitch is basically we help non-finance people to understand the numbers well enough so they can take better decisions in order to make
mm,
profit. And if we drill down in that, we're talking about entrepreneurs. There are so many, this irks me. There are so many businesses and entrepreneurs out there with fantastic business models. They don't know their numbers. They have got accountants. Their accountants are ticking that compliance box. That's all they're doing.
mm,
So I help those business owners to understand the numbers so they can make decisions on their own because their accountant, they're not giving them that forward look. They're giving them the history. They're quickly doing
mm,
the books and walking away. Um,
mm, mm,
one of my sayings is you need to know your numbers better than your accountant. Because if you
mm,
don't know your numbers better than your accountant, you are the guy that's going to be sitting at the robots one day, holding the I'm hungry sign. Not your accountant. It's going to be you. So all
yeah.
business owners need to understand the numbers better. And that's who I'm trying to empower. But I'm also
Mm,
empowering, you can imagine, sales teams, marketing teams, ops teams, HR teams. All these guys have budgets to manage. You can
mm,
imagine
mm,
a sales team. Sales teams, I mean, I always say a salesman will sell their mother-in-law for free just to do the deal. They're not thinking about the bottom line. Sales teams are getting walked over by their clients because they don't understand their numbers. because the guys are just looking at what was the deal I did. I did a R1 million deal. That's great. I did a $2 million deal. That's great. But are we actually making profit after you've just offered your customer, your client, a 10% discount? And you can discount, then you allowed them to pay you in 3 months as well. So cash flow is gone, profitability is gone. We now need to sell another. We now need to do another $10 million deal to make up that loss. So it's empowering people. It's very empowering to know stuff. Knowledge is power. And if everybody can understand the numbers in a very simple way, we're not trying to create chartered accountants here or accountants. We just want people to understand the basics. That's all.
I think that's so important. And I love using analogies, right? So, if you think about, if you want to be healthy and fit and active, okay, you need to know the basics. You need to know that you shouldn't overeat. You need to know that you need proteins. I'm not a nutritionist, vegetables and fluids. And you need to know you need to exercise regularly. You don't need to be a medical doctor or a dietitian and all of those sorts of things. If you don't, think of kids growing up, you would just like live in a diet of sweets and sugar, and I think that's what you're trying to do is once you understand that, once your kids understand that eating broccoli is actually good for them. They may not like it, but it's good for them. And that you've got to eat the broccoli sometimes to get the ice cream for dessert. So I love that, because everyone thinks numbers and accounting is the accountant's job, but it's everyone's job. Okay, because if the business is not making money, then the business shuts down. Okay, so I think let's move on from that. So now everyone's got this base understanding. Where do you typically find, though, that sort of non-finance teams get stuck? Okay, so you're dealing with ops teams, you're dealing with sales, and what's the cost if the leaders, whether it's the entrepreneur or whether it's in a corporate, the bigger teams, what happens if leaders ignore this?
I think, Graham, sorry, I just bring me back to I'll use an example actually, and it's actually my client. Same kind of example. I ran a workshop for my client on Monday last week, and it's an engineering client, and we do work for the big nuclear energy stations and things, and they're busy going through a whole ISO nuclear approval thing, which we are going to now be the only company in South Africa that's ISO approved for nuclear. And we had an exco the other day, and I said to the bosses, I said to the owners, I said, guys, we've got a lot of money outstanding here, and it's all sitting in timesheets. It's all sitting in a process before invoice, and it's all sitting in what money is owed to us. So the process that we're going through is taking too long. We don't have those checks and balances in place and those escalations in place. So just empowering people on a process, and the owners literally, their eyes went like this big. And I then offered to run a workshop for them on Monday, and I ran the workshop. It was only 3 hours. I'm going back on Tuesday to finish off. And I had the ops guy in, I had the finance people in, and I had HR in, because it all relates, right? We're buying people and selling people. So we're putting a tender in, and we're charging so much per hour. And then HR is hiring somebody and paying them so much per hour. But there's no correlation, and there's no process between what we're paying and what we're charging out. So in some cases we're not making any money, in other places we're making a lot of money. But I'm finding that after the workshop, I've empowered them. They are now empowered. HR now understands that we need to target this markup percentage to achieve that gross profit percentage. Finance now also understands that. And finance also now understands we need to get the invoices out quicker to get the cash in quicker. Because if we win this new job, we're putting a tender in today at 12 o'clock. If we win this job, we're going to need cash. We can't afford to be for cash from clients. So the correlation between the training and the ops team and the finance team and the HR team, it's all about breaking down those silos, because HR is working in silos. finance is working in silos and ops is working in silos. We need to we need to break those silos down, work as a team, and maximize cash flow and bottom line.
You talk about alignment, actually, and I think people get so intimidated and scared by jargon, like everyone does it because the accountants want to sound super important and sales team wants. So this is actually at its core, it's about creating a common language, and it's creating a common understanding of how the business model works. And if I may just use another very simple example, that we experienced with one of our clients. They were having a debate. We value businesses, as everyone knows, and one of the things that we said is they were paying away too much to partner commissions for distribution. And they said, yeah, but our partners for distribution are insisting that they want 50% revenue share. Okay, and there was a lot of pressure because the partner carried a lot of power on the revenue share. And then when we broke it down for them, we said, well, look, actually, you can only afford 30% revenue share. But how they reframed that is they then went back to the partners and said, listen, to the partners, we incurring a hard cost of 40%. We've got to pay people, we've got to do this, we've got to do whatever. You're just plugging this into your distribution network. Yes, we'll agree to 50%, but it's 50% of the gross margin. And the partners were suddenly happy because it was like, okay, this is a fair partnership. That 50% of the gross margin, which is 60%, well, that's 30% commission on revenue. So they're very simple examples, but I think if you can get an understanding of that across the value chain of the business, across different departments, suddenly like everyone's working towards that same common goal. So yeah, I love that. And I love just the simplicity in this. And we take it for granted as accountants. But somebody who's never had any schooling in accounting, maybe not so much, right?
Graham, they are terrified of the numbers. I had a lady, I actually forgot the story. I went to Port Elizabeth once to do some training for a big bank. And it was the execs of the bank. So the client execs, they're like the sales team.
Yeah.
And I had this lady come to me and she was shaking. She was literally shaking. It was a face-to-face training. She was literally shaking. She said, Andrew, I'm retiring in 2 years' time. I don't like the numbers. I've never ever understood the numbers. My team always wants me to understand the numbers. But please, just leave me. Let me sit in the back. She was literally shaking, Graham. I promise you, it was almost terrifying for me. I thought she's going to have a heart attack. She went and she sat at the back of the class. And I gave her a little bit of attention and whatever. At the end of the second day, she came to me and she put her arms around me and she said, Andrew, it's the first time in my life that I understand the numbers because you explained it in such layman's terms. I was getting WhatsApps all afternoon from her colleagues saying, Andrew, thank you so much. It's like she's a happy person. She's changed. She's different. She's just like so confident now because she finally gets certain concepts which she just couldn't get before. Because Graham, you're right. We studied accounting for a long time, right? I probably studied it for longer than you did. And
you took the extra, you grabbed an Easter cake, you took an extra year to focus on boat race.
Exactly. Best 12 years of my life was trying to get through honors. No, I'm joking. But we get the numbers. We studied the numbers. And even after I qualified as a CA, I still didn't get the numbers. I learned it. It's only after that I really got it. And I understood the balance sheet and income statement and how they relate properly. It wasn't just learning what to debit and what to credit. We actually get it now. And to get it like that, you're able to then explain it in layman's terms to non-finance people. And the light bulbs switch on. And Graham, that's what attracted me to what I do. Seeing those light bulbs switch on in non-finance people's eyes is like incredible. I love it.
And then confidence builds confidence. So once people become more confident, they kind of build on that. Andrew, I want to kind of bring things towards a sort of a little bit of a close, but let's just talk very briefly. What's next for Finance Fusion? So if we look forward to the next 12 to 24 months, what's on the roadmap for you?
So as Finance Fusion is at the moment, it's a simulated way of learning finance over a Zoom call or a Teams meeting with, let's say, between 12 and 20 people in a room, and it's fully facilitated, which I think is necessary for finance. And we teach the basics. Post that, we then customize, right? So we customize Finance Fusion for corporates. So we'll do Finance Fusion for Nando's branch managers, as an example, and we'll use the Nando's transactions and the Nando's budget process and the Nando's month-end process, so that everybody's on the same page and we're speaking Nando's finance. Post that, we have just developed something called Finance Guru. So Finance Guru is turning it more into commercial finance. So now we've got modules that we can help sales teams and marketing teams and HR teams out. So now we're talking also more working capital, managing your working capital as an entrepreneur. So we've sort of like what we used to call higher grade in the old days. We've gone up a couple of steps in that. So that's what's on the horizon. We're going to be running our first workshop in about 2 months' time. But what else is on the horizon for Finance Fusion is I'm trying to get into the USA. I'm trying to go global, right? So I have run a couple of workshops for global companies, Bell Telecoms in Canada, and I've done Saudi Aramco Total in Saudi. So I've done a bit of international work, and it's landed really, really well. I'm looking for more of that. My colleagues in the Lekker network say that I need to find a partner. I think, Graham, you also gave me this advice. Find a partner in the USA, and niche down. So I need to, so at the moment, I'm everything to everybody. So if you tell me you need finance training, I'm saying, okay, well, that's cool. We'll do it for you. It doesn't matter who you are. We'll customize it for you. We can do anything. Whereas if I'm in the States, I need to niche down. I've been told to niche down to software companies, sales teams. Because you can imagine these IT guys terrified of numbers and they're trying to sell. So I mean, sure as hell, these guys are going to be selling things for free. So I'm going to be trying to niche down into that. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for like training companies in the States or elsewhere that offer training to IT companies. They might offer technical training. They might offer soft skills training, but they don't have the finance bit. I'm looking to partner with training companies like that. So that for me that's what I'm focusing on at the moment. I'm also focusing on getting my online version up. So I'm at the moment, it's taking a long time, but I'm trying to get an online version of my training so I can post it out there so we can get people trained while we're sleeping.
I mean, Andrew, I think it's wonderful. You know, you've got this vision to empower, bring finance accessible to non-finance. It's a great vision, right? But as like any entrepreneur, the execution of that vision goes along different paths. Okay, and as you're learning, you know, when you go across different countries, there's cultural differences, nuances. You talk about niching down in South Africa. Our market's not big enough here often to be able to do that. Whereas in the US, the market is so big, unless you niche down, people don't take you seriously, you know. So and I think it's fascinating because when you go back to your backstory, all your journeys along the way have helped prepare you for this. You know, working in the early days across Europe, people speaking 40 different languages, okay, different cultures, you know, that stuff sits in the back of your head. So you're uniquely positioned to be able to take Finance Fusion to the next level. And yeah, I mean, I hopefully somebody who's listening in today, you know, if that resonates with you, please reach out to Andrew. You know, so you're an active member of the Lekker network. You know, it's a great way also for people to understand and I think just have a conversation, right? I mean, if anybody can help Andrew, giving him a punch, connect. Andrew, I'm gonna wrap up. You're at the end. We have a bit of a, let's call it a rapid fire section. I'll ask you a couple of questions, but before that, just to end. What are, yeah, if you look back over the last 35 years, 30 years, how far back do you want to go in terms of your age? But just for you, what has been the sort of biggest learning and lesson you've had this far across your journey?
Doing everything myself, not getting help, not not getting enough advice from people, and I think listening. So listening is very important. So I mean, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing in the States is because I've listened, I've heard, and people are saying the same thing, and I need to not do it. I mean, the other thing is like, don't give up. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, don't give up. You just need one. That's what they keep on saying to me. You just need one proper client, and you're going. My problem is my business has been stop, start all the time. You know, I'm doing one workshop and then nothing, and then another workshop and then nothing. So I'm trying to get
Yeah.
something where the wheel is turning. So I would
Yeah.
say, get to know your numbers better than anybody else and get help.
I love that. You know, and it's simple, and I think also just appreciate you know, how authentic and how vulnerable you are in this conversation. You know, often you speak to founders and they paint this glossy picture. You got to be honest and say, hey, like, this is a challenge. I don't have enough annuity income, or I don't have enough partnerships. And when you understand the numbers, you understand that, right? You can see that you don't have enough repeat work. So taking those lessons and applying to yourself is hard, and spreading the load and getting partners and help people want to help. And I think that's also, it's a big learning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
is.
So Andrew, a couple of one-liners, and I'm going to ask about 5 questions, top of your mind, quick fire answers.
Mhm.
One finance myth you wish that every non-finance person could unlearn.
Sales is not equal to cash received. That is something I come across every single day. Everybody thinks that income is money in the bank, but it's not. It's when we deliver goods and services. That's the probably 99% of the people that come on my course don't know that. And I'm talking about senior people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen businesses where the sales commission model, the commission's only paid when the money's in the bank. And it's amazing how that can change behavior. I know there's all arguments to say, yeah, but sales team isn't responsible for debtors and what have you. But particularly in smaller businesses, that can actually work really well. You just move it from percentage of closed deal to percentage of paid deal, and you
Yeah.
get very different behaviors. Okay.
And then make it even better and base it on gross profit, not on the sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One underrated metric outside of the finance team.
I'd say again sales, right? So ROI on sales. So how much time are we spending on the sale? And I look at myself in the mirror in this one because I have spent years selling LinkedIn, podcasts. I mean, you name it. And yes, I got quite a good following, and people listen to me and they like my posts and they learn stuff. But at the end of the day, vanity isn't equal to cash, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I think sales, yeah, it's important. I think I saw something on LinkedIn this morning. I think it was Sam Altman quote, and he said, you know, when you get to a senior enough level, everyone's job is a sales job, which
Yeah.
which is true, right?
Yeah.
Your favorite book, or book or resource that you would recommend the most?
So something that changed my life quite a long time ago, Screw It, Just Do It by Richard Branson. I've read good books since then, but that was one book that changed my thinking. You know, stop just doing your job. Just go and do something else. Just do what you want to do.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, whether you love or hate Richard Branson, I mean, that book has got a lot of a lot in it to kick people into action. I guess that's what it was designed to do, right? um,
Exactly.
Last thing, your favorite failure. That sounds like an odd question. What is the one thing where you failed and you're now grateful for?
Um, you know, when you're doing a deal and you like bank on it before it's done. I was doing a deal with a big logistics company in Tennessee about 3 years ago. And it was a big deal for me. It was like a couple of $100,000. And it was an all lady owned, sorry, this is not a one liner, it's not a short answer.
Go for it.
And you know, I chatted to the learning and development lady. They wanted to train like 150 or 100 people, and I spoke to her, and then she had her full exec. Like there were about 7 ladies on a Zoom call, and they loved it. I showed them what I had, and they absolutely loved it. They said, "No, this is a no-brainer. We have to do this. This is the best thing they've seen." their finance training was terrible. They want this gamified version, and it's going to be customized. So they said, okay, go away and go and chat to the lady that I was dealing with and go and discuss price. So I prepared a proposal, and I did all the right things. I did everything right. I didn't send her the proposal. They say you must never send a proposal. You must rather discuss the proposal. So I discussed the proposal with her. We came to mutual agreement in terms of the numbers. And then she said, okay, she will start arranging for all the formalities. I get an email about a week later. Sorry, Andrew, we've had a spend freeze because our company is being bought out by another company.
Sure.
Yes, it takes you from the side, eh? I mean, you've been working on this deal for months and months and months, and then it doesn't happen. So I'm grateful for that, because those things knock you down. You fall off the horse and you got to get up, and you fall off the horse and you get up, and you fall off the horse and you get up. And they say you need to fall off 100 times before you win a job. I don't know what number I'm on. I'm sure I'm on more than 100 by now.
I'll take you back to the 90s at university in the Eastern Cape. There was a Chumbawamba song that said, I get knocked down and I get back up again.
Yes,
You're
that
never going
one.
to keep me down.
That
I'm
one.
not going to try sing it, but yeah.
Exactly.
Well, listen, Andrew, I mean, just wonderful having you on the show. I think your story is practical. It's refreshingly human. I don't think we mentioned, maybe we mentioned debits and credits once. But where can people learn more about you, about Finance Fusion, and how can they connect with you?
I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best place. I do have a website, www.financefusion.com. But find me on LinkedIn. I mean, Andrew Fick. Just search me on LinkedIn. I think it's probably the best place. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we'll also leave a link in the show notes. And to our listeners, if you found the show useful, please share it with a founder or a team lead or somebody who can take value out of this. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out some of the other videos and podcasts and interviews there around building value. Andrew, thanks again for being here today.
Graham, thank you so much. It's been great.